Regional poetry is a tool for the protest. It's like our daily meat. And regional poetry is the need for the society. And regional poetry only contribute to the social history, social politics of that land and the welfare of the people, I should say.
Hi, welcome to Maharani Talks, and I'm your host, Mahati Rangarajan. Dr. Revathi, or Kutti Revathi as she's always known as, is my first guest on the podcast that I'm talking to for the second time. The last time I spoke to her was a decade ago, and the issues that mattered to her then matter even today. She's a prominent Tamil poet, writer, and lyricist whose works have largely centered on body politics and oppression. Her second work, Mulaigal, meaning breasts in Tamil, was published in 2002, where she spoke about female sexuality and the use of Tamil words like Mulaigal and yoni, meaning vagina. It enraged certain sections of the society that they called for Revathi's book to be burnt, followed by threats and discussions about her morality. But Revathi has since then gone on to publish more works. In this episode, we talk about many pertinent topics about why women's bodies are constantly regulated and the impact of regional literature. And while you're listening to this conversation, don't forget to follow us for more such interesting discussions. Hi, Dr. Revathi. Welcome to Maharani Talks.
Thank you so much. Hi, Magati. Hope you are doing well.
I'm doing really well. And how you been? What is keeping you busy these days?
Shooting. I've been shooting few music videos, a short film, and preparing for a film. So it's terribly busy, and I love it in a way. But we are used to being home all the time, no?
Yeah.
Now we have to reach out places. So it has been really hectic. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
I can imagine that you have so much on your plate. Are you in a position to discuss about the projects you're working on, or?
I can talk about it, but I can't talk about it in detail with names and things. The thing is, I'm very interested in directing the movies. I have completed directing my debut, Siragu, that was produced by Mala Manian First Copy Productions. And my next film is going to happen. Sooner it will be announced.
Interesting. I want to go back to when you took up reading and writing, and you mentioned how your father played a huge role, and that's how your interest in literature grew. But you said your mother was against it. Why is that?
I think mothers have patriarchal qualities more than fathers sometimes. That's because they have to build the houses in a very proper way. She used to say, to my father that you are spoiling our daughter by, providing her lots of books to read. Are you aware what kinds of books she reads, So, but father was interested in literature, Sangam literature more, I believe.
Okay.
When I look back, I realized that he was interested more in Sangam literature, and he was providing in the best way he could, because he was not a very good reader himself, because he was not privileged or sophisticated to buy books for his own reading. With the facilities he had in those days, he could get those kinds of books for us. So he cultivated a kind of reading habit in me that took me to writing, I believe. But truly speaking, I didn't think of me as a writer more. I always thought of me as a doctor.
Okay.
Because I was very interested in knowing human bodies, how they function, and how they can be cured, how they can be kept healthy. That's my keen interest, even in these days of Corona. And so I was very keen to get into medical field. And in the beginning, I didn't get seats in medical colleges. It was very difficult in those days. And I was not aware how I should get into medical field and things. And in 2 years, I got a seat in Siddha Medical College, Palayamkottai. And it was a professional degree, 5.5 years. And my father was always suspicious about my, intentions, whether I could go through the study completely or I would give up halfway. So he had promised me to buy a silk saree if I could finish the degree, and
How sweet.
he gifted me a sky blue saree. Still, I have it with me.
Okay. And it was while you were studying Siddha medicine is when you realized you had a flair for writing poetry.
Yeah, I was very crazy about poetry, reading poetry, I should say. And I was in an intense love affair also. So how you could express in love when you are in love? So poetry is the medium weapon, and so I think I wrote poetry, and that person was also interested in sharing my poetry. And I thought poetry was very personal for sharing between these two people only. I was not interested in publishing them. So I used to write poetry always in my diaries. I had collection of notebooks with all these poems, and I used to go to Corporation Library in Tirunelveli.
Okay.
That had Bharatiya's books and all modern poets books. Those days you can't reach out Google. It was not there. Internet was not there.
Yeah.
So I used to I used to write down all the poems that I liked, and I used to read through the nights and by heart. And it's very, we can't have that kind of time now. I really want to spend time, with lots of books that I carry, with me, but we can't repeat those things in our life.
Yeah. And sometimes that idleness is important to encourage that creativity, right?
Yes, Magati. Even buying books is, it's a privilege.
True.
It's not easy to buy books. But now I could buy lots and lots of books. I have some 10,000 books with me in my house.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I can't live without books. I think I can live without human beings. I can live alone. I love solitude very much, but I can't live without books.
And your style of writing poetry, it has a lot of strong imagery. Why is that? How did that come about?
I think it goes with your intellect. Every person is an intellectual person, but it is a culmination of what kind of person you are, what kinds of events impact you, the thirst for the language, and the intensity you engage with the language in your daily life, and the belief and practice you have in your daily life.
Yeah.
The style comes out of all these things. It's not just one thing one can learn or one can be taught. It's totally a different thing. It took, I could say, 20 years to catch what my style is, or to realize what my style is. And I can change it. I have evolved so much from the beginning, so that I can write poetry non-stop for 2 decades. And I think I'm still a poet on this day. Though I'm directing movies, I very much engage with visual medium. So the thing you asked, the imagery, I come with lots of imagery. I think it comes from the language I learned. Tamil has all these intricacies in it. As you learn Tamil passionately, it offers you everything through your poetry.
True. Your first work was Pune Pola Alayum Velicham, Light Prowls Like a Cat, was received very well. And then you came about with your second one, Mulaigal, which was in 2002. Though your first one was received well, we all know now how much controversy the second one ran into. But what prompted you to write about body politics?
That's an important question, Magati. So one day it happened. One of my friends read my poetry, and he introduced me to publisher. And that publisher was willing to publish the poems. It was Pune Pola Alayum Velicham. It was the imageries of nature and your teenage fantasies and things. But the second collection became very controversial. But I didn't realize people were very they were throwing hatred towards me and towards my writing. And they said I did it purposely and things. But to my knowledge, for my conscience, it is that I was a doctor. And Mulaigal is a very medical word for me, in Siddha medicine. We used to speak this word, in our daily college days during our classes and things. So it didn't occur to me that this would be becoming a controversial one. But what I realized behind the scenes is um, all male writers were not expecting a female writer on board. One thing. The second thing is they didn't like a female writer to come with the body politics.
Yeah.
And third thing is even female writers were, a few of the writers were against it, because I could see that was a time where a clan of female writers were evolving with body politics at the same time, and it was really shaking the social status quo of the society. So it really had a big impact across the state, across the nation, I should say. So I think for these 2 decades, the male writers who were against female poetry, women poetry, still they are not ready to understand what it is, why it is so, and they are not ready to accept it. Their intellect portion of their brain is not functioning yet, I should say. That's how it has been happening. But from my place, I could see uh, even the magazines, modern magazine, literary magazines, popular magazines, they had to take a stand on this, and they had to accept female writers as part of their magazines and articles. And slowly it became popular, and I think the public grew up to understand why and how it had happened. Actually, it was a beautiful evolution, I should say.
Okay. So during that time, who supported you and other women writers who were writing about body politics?
I think the public supported first. They could understand our poetry more than the politics around it and the polemics around it, I believe. And few writers were really with us. They could fight for us. And it was like a protest poetry only. And it happened because I can explain the mechanism here. And in 1990s, Dr. Ambedkar's centenary celebration was celebrated across the nation in a greater way.
Okay.
So there was an awareness about Anil Ambedkar and his fights for human rights and other things against untouchability, for women rights, and lots of things the bottom of the society can understand it. And even whoever came to writing from women's sector, where they were oppressed through thousands of years by caste, religion, and women, politics. So we could really erupt like a volcano at one point of time. It happened suddenly, unconsciously, I should say.
Right. And do you think so many male writers opposed to it because they felt only men have the authority to project or, talk about women's bodies?
Men can't tolerate women writing their own bodies, because till then, only men had the rights of writing the body of women. For 3,000 years, it had happened. Our ancestors, women ancestors, female ancestors, were under the surveillance of their antenna. So for the first time, we come out of those walls and we could use our fingers to write. We can use our tongues to voice out. We can do really magic with the language, we had in us. So till now, the bigger male writers can't even have the tolerance of realizing what they are writing, and they don't have that kind of understanding at all.
Okay. When you sit down to write poems, what is it? Do you have a clear idea? What is it you want to voice? What do you want your poems to achieve?
That was a very continuous process, I believe. A person cannot become a writer one fine morning. It's a long process, and you have to be writing and voicing out all the time. It's a daily thing. It's like a tree growing under the light of sun. You have to sit and write daily. You have to engage with the society daily. You have to have these kinds of interactions, even this kind of conversations with the world, outside world.
Yeah.
So it's like an alchemy of a number of things. It's not just I can fantasize something and I can write my fantasies and imaginations. Maybe male writers can do that. But for women, I think we have the responsibility of knowing the social history of our women, through these years, and how they are oppressed in different houses, different societies, different nations. We have to be like connecting with the whole globe. It's not easy being a writer. You should really have complete conscience of why you are writing, what you are writing, and what for you are writing. These are very important questions. So it's not happening suddenly. As we talked about my reading habit, it had started even earlier, I believe.
So, does the current socio-political scene always show up in your writings?
Very much, very much. I think I want to be very contemporary and very current in my writing. Now, I'm not ambitious, but that's how my skeleton of intellect has been made, I believe. That's how I've been building it up.
Okay. But for the first time when you faced opposition from the society, and in fact, there was a cry about burning your books and everything, did that scare you into censoring your work or toning down your next work?
Not at all. But I was wondering why this happens, because I was getting letters with abusive contents, and then itself the internet had started. People started receiving mails with abusive contents about me and things. And even the bigger, said to be bigger male writers, they could come with lots of mockery about my breasts, my writings about breasts. So it was for them very fun, I believe. But for me, whenever I'm doing something, I think I have been taught by my school teachers, my parents. I have to be very careful, keen, intense, and complete. That's how I have been, practicing. So, did I do anything wrong? So I started questioning myself. No, not at all. They are just talking about the words. Their attention was all about the word breast, not about the poetry. They couldn't even get into the rooms of the poetry. They couldn't get into the kingdom of my poetry at all. So whatever they talked about was only about the word, that word. So then I realized all things around women writing, women poetry, and women poetry's contents, and in the history, how women poets have been there all the time to voice out to the kings, to talk to the kings, how they were very expressive, how they were explicit in their ideas. So it gave me a strong momentum to get into writing after that. So till then, I was literally, writing for the sake of writing, I should say. Then it really took a kickstart. I really took it a serious and sincere engagement, I should say.
Okay. Uh, all these years, you've written about body politics and the patriarchal oppression of women or caste discrimination. How has the feedback been from women per se? How have they reacted to their poems? Have they told you how it has helped them?
Women are tuned to this uh, patriarchal system. They are women are asked to handle the patriarchal system intact. The keys are given to the mothers, wives, and sisters of the families. So knowingly or unknowingly, we are asked to handle the system in proper format. So part of the women were really against it, against my poetry. They were not willing to talk to me. They are not in touch with me still even now. But I realized the purpose of my writing, in the process. The intentions became stronger in me that I should continue the writing. And as I was invited to national poetry festivals, international poetry festivals, and I realized during those festivals, poetry readings, that Tamil poetry was extraordinary, and Tamil women poetry was extraordinary among those domains. And I think across India, um, Tamil poetry and Marathi poetry and Manipuri poetry were very exceptional. All they spoke was about women body politics, and they were very powerful. They could silence the audiences. They were very powerful with the language, the imagery, the throw they come with. So it was a wave, striking wave at one point of time, nationally and internationally. So it shed a light on my thoughts.
Okay. And you, of course, later on in 2005 started Panikkudam, Tamil first feminist magazine, and you helped voice many women's writers and their works. How has that progressed? Is it still continuing?
I couldn't continue now, but it's very difficult to bring out literary magazines. It's a serious business. It's serious work. But those days, I was not allowed to write in any of the magazines after these controversies. But I had a strong thirst in me to
Publish.
write poetry. Publish. You want your poetry to reach people. That kind of instinct was becoming stronger in me. I wrote lots of strong poetry after the controversies, I believe, and we needed spaces. So I brought all the female writers into that magazine, and I brought some 9 non-stop continuous issues of that magazine, and I published lots of women poets books also those times, lot important women poetry, and I was very happy and excited in bringing those books because it really gave me a fresh wave of language, the dynamics the other writers were handling. So ஒரு பொற்காலம் அது, ஒரு golden period of my literary life, I should say.
Okay. I was wondering whose picture is that at the back?
This poet is Pramil. He was from Trikonamalai, Sri Lanka. He is the pioneer of modern poetry.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of this person. And whatever politics I engage these days, he had started earlier itself, before me coming into the scene. This person is a great musician, Bismillah Khan.
I think he was Pandit Ravi Shankar's guru.
And everyone's. He was a noble person, and he can seduce us with music.
So going back to talking about when you said you published women's work, Tamil literature for a long time, as you've also said, has been a forte for male writers. So how do you think women have changed it, especially now with the contemporary poets?
Yeah, that is the second part of your question. First part was women poets had been always there in the scenario, I believe. They were there to give advices to the kings, to give, to direct the public towards something for the betterment of their living. So they had been there like teachers for the society. This is about the ancient society. When it comes to contemporary poetry, I think we are not considered as part of literary society at all. We are branded as female writers.
Yeah.
Female, we are branded. So it gives a tag that tag gives the license to the male writers that we cannot be included in the common main literary flows. We have contributed more in transforming the language that were used only with the notion of oppressing the women, knowingly or unknowingly. We had really transformed. We have brought out lots of changes in the usages of words. Usages, how a woman can be called, woman can be addressed in the public floor. From there on, we have been really changing lots of things that should be addressed about women in the public and in personal flows. Not only that, the format wise, nobody is discussing about that, but literary format wise, style wise, politics wise, we have really given a great contribution to the floor. But it was not at all discussed so far, acknowledged so far. But we have been appreciated. We have been invited to all these literary flows. But I doubt whether they have really understood what we have been contributing to the society.
That's an interesting point you put forth about how language has been used to oppress women. Could you elaborate on that?
In a greater way. I don't know how I can put forth this. I don't know how I can frame this also. But before 2 decades, there were only 2 genders,
Yeah.
female and male. Now it is not like that. The transformation has become like a rainbow. Yeah, for protest and fights for the rights had been happening across the globe. But it has really impacted our language as because the female writers were also engaging themselves with this movement. So we had really transformed the words we use for denoting the gender, and because of the transgender movement also. So it has blurred. It has really blurred the discrimination and the boundaries.
Yeah. So it's not black and white anymore.
Yeah, we have become a rainbow now.
Yeah, true. And an interesting point I came across is you were awarded a travel grant in 2005 by the Sahitya Academy. And you actually have an interesting anecdote to share about you met none other than Maheshwata Devi.
Wow. How I was, prideful on that day. But she was an all-time an angry woman she is. She can be angry with anyone. Why are you wearing this bangle? It is like, oppressing you. Why are you wearing a chain? It is like oppressing it's like trapping your neck. So you're not supposed to wear any kind of jewel. That's how, yeah, she is a pakka, a feminist and fighter and human rights activist, genuine, very genuine, from top to bottom, a complete person. Those women, from that generations, they can be a completely an activist, or they cannot be a half cooked person. They can really, change anyone they encounter. I was able to stay with her only one day. I was requesting her for staying with her for a few more days. I called her from here in Chennai that I'm coming for this fellowship.
Okay.
I have applied to the academy that I want to only meet Mahasweta Devi, and I'm very busy. I don't want to meet anyone. Why academy does all these things? That's how she started. And she gave me a day. And when I reached there, she was not remembering at all. So I was a nuisance there, on that day, because she was really having a busy schedule. And during the lunch, she could patch up little. Oh, come join the lunch up. Then she started talking lots of things about her activism, her daily life she had with tribal women, how tribal women were oppressed in this country, and she talked lots about mythological women we are taught in our daily life as goddesses.
Yeah.
But those are not true. So she could really open my eyes in a totally different way. She was a bomb, Mahati, on that day. She was very angry. I immediately thought I should go away from her house, immediately. I was resisting because I had gone all the way from Chennai to Calcutta. So I cannot take the train immediately. I don't know anyone there around. So it was very difficult for me. So I was standing, by the door, and I was telling her, I know I was well aware that I was disturbing her, the routine. But slowly she came forward and shared lots of things, few things that our body is totally trapped in men's hands. The second thing is mythological women are taught to us in a totally different way, that we should open our eyes and we should come out of it. That's why she wrote Draupadi. And third thing is she was very concerned about tribal women of the country, and she genuinely fought for them, for their rights.
And I'm sure for her generation back in those times, her fight must have been much, much harder.
Yeah, but they have given their life for that, so they were very convinced that they were not looking for families acknowledgements. She particularly, she was not appreciating or in pursuit of any kinds of pleasures or happiness for her, I believe. All her life she spent with tribal women.
Okay.
That was something else. And if you read her stories, you could see yourself being transforming into a different person. She had really given me that much power. I always remember her. She's one of the greatest writers of India.
Yeah.
And whatever she wrote it could really change anyone who reads her writing. That much power she has in her writing.
Okay. Many of your works have been translated. Were you apprehensive about how they would translate, or you think they actually did real good to, the whole movement, body politics movement?
I always come up with this question, wherever I go, because it is very difficult to translate my poetry to other languages or English, I believe. It's very difficult. And so, what can I expect? I cannot complain. One thing. Second thing is, the translations only took us away from this darkness of the controversies. So really, it took us, Lakshmi Homestorm, she only took us away from this, the politics that was happening in this Tamil literary floor. So I am really grateful for whatever they had done to our poetry.
Yeah.
And the third thing is, then only I realized how Tamil women poetry is very important and contemporary. Even Eram women poets, they were the pioneer for our writing, I should say. Even if you read that poetry on this day, they are very contemporary, and they could strike you with all their words. So it's not we can't complain about the translations at all, like Mahati. From my side only, I can say this, because international English and the language they use for the translations have different caliber, quality, style, and that's all different. I can't go to that level and talk about it. But the translations of our poetry had really done a big thing, I should say. I'm really grateful to all the translators who took effort to translate our poetry. Really, really.
Could I ask, how long did this controversy haunt you?
Some 5 years, more than 5 years. It's like I can't even smile to people. That kind of darkness had succumbed me, and it took some time. Then only what I did, during those times, I read all women literature, all classic world literature. I had a thorough reading of Pakka, reading of all this literature. Then I emerged about these.
Okay. As a regional poet, as a poet who writes in regional literature, what do you think you gain and lose at the same time?
We can't talk this like gain and loss.
Or if I could, if I could reword it, maybe like advantages or disadvantages. Like, do you feel as a regional as someone who writes in regional literature, your work cannot have the reach that you would like it to have?
We can't even compare regional literature with world literature. That's my thing. I had reached the corners of the world with my poetry. I've gone to read poetry there. But what I realize is these both are two different things. And regional poetry is the need for the society. And world poetry is, it's like a very elite, very sophisticated thing. Regional poetry is a tool for the protest. It's like our daily meat. It's our blood issue. So we can't compare these two things. And regional poetry only contribute to the social history, social politics of that land and that people, and the goodness for the welfare of the people, I should say. So it never occurred to me that it can be, regional poetry can be compared to regional literature, even can be compared to the world literature. They don't get along on any kind of platforms.
So you don't think Indian poets who write in English probably don't have the means to get through to the voice of people?
In a way, it is. But slowly in India, the writers who write in English were emerging from the bottom of the society, from the oppressed society. So they could, make the world hear the voices, the true voices of this country. So it happened slowly. But I think they cannot be compared. They cannot be compared in any way. I never had the partiality over it. I even, I have great respect for regional poetry only because in India, the diverse nation it is. And I know all these poets from our state who write in regional languages, and they had really worked for the social welfare of the nation.
Okay. So in that sense, can I ask, women poets who write in English, their struggles are nowhere close to, women poets who write in regional literature?
Yeah, sure. People may really come against it, but I can talk to them, and I can clarify my vision and views, I believe. But where can be their struggle? Tell me. Only are showing yourself as a writer to the world. We are not aware of lots of regional writers yet.
Yeah, we're not aware.
You will be aware only when they are translated, only when you hear their poetry in English. They want our tongues to be in English, but we can't. We don't want, actually, in a way, because our regional voices are like roots of this land. So I think we have to make the people equipped in listening to the regional poetry in a different way, not giving the supremacy to the language English.
Yes, I agree. Regional literature is very important. But there are also poets who are writing about important issues, whether it's social issues or political issues, who are using English as a medium to convey their message. Do you think it has the same power as our own language?
Yes, these days it has happened. Even the gender issues were, brought out to the society through English poetry. Now, English has also become a regional language.
In a way, yeah.
Not in a way, in all ways, I believe, because we have, an Indian English is there that can be considered as a regional voice of India. So we have to take this on that level. So, if you take English as a regional language, one of the regional languages, then we won't be having any complications or complexities to understand poetry and what they address.
Right. There's a lot of discussion going on right now about intersectional feminism and, caste discrimination. A lot of that conversation has also been happening on social media. Have you been following that, and how does that translate often for you in your work? Or is that something that you've always tried to convey in your work?
I think I have been aware of this always. And that the controversies were happening only because of these kinds of things, discussions that were there in the literary flows from always. The thing is, when it comes to India, if you take India, it's all about caste. Because, even you and me can be sisters, but the oppressions over us can be depending on the caste practices we are thrust to. So it's not, if you take other countries, that's why we can't accept Western feminism, and we can't implement in our society. And writer Bama had discussed about this a lot. If you take Dalit man, he's below all the upper caste women.
Yeah.
So we have to understand the dynamics of caste and feminism here in a very, it's very interlinked. It's like a web. We can't talk straight feminism, and it's very difficult. Even if you talk feminism with women, it's very complicated. Lots of levels. Even at times you have to be for men also. You have to bring in men's politics also. Not other men's I would appreciate, but oppressed men, Dalit men. You have to consider their positions in the society, how they are treated in this country. It should also be considered. So it's like feminism here means, if you could understand the pyramid of caste, it'll be easier for us to address feminists. We are strong feminists. I'm a strong feminist in all ways of expressions. But I have a keen understanding and awareness of what it is when it comes to being an Indian woman.
Right.
It needs a big floor, open floor. We have to be open about it. We cannot be resisting, this is what's said in this country. This is what that feminist said this. In India, it has to be open. We have to accept lots of views. We have to try to incorporate all these things, because even in these days, how many women are raped, even women who are empowered, who are in high positions, how many girl children are being raped. I think all these notions of raping women, even if you are a child, even if you are a big sort of woman, that's because of caste prejudices that is happening in your head.
Yeah. Talking about your other avenues that you have explored, writing lyrics for A.R.Rahman was something that you'd done. Would you like to do more of continuing your work as a lyricist?
That was the most beautiful thing happened in my life. I said no during those controversies. It was like darkness clouded over me. And then I happened to meet A.R. Rahman for a film, Marian. I was working as an associate for that film. So Rahman was aware that I was a poet. So one fine day, he was asking me whether I could write lyrics for this tune. But I had an opinion that as poet is superior and lyricist is inferior. That kind of thing was in my head, because I had a big fight for being a poetry,
Yeah.
So I had always had this notion in me. How can you say no to A.R. Rahman? So I said immediately yes, and I penned it. It was a beautiful thing, because I wrote 2 songs. We collaboratively wrote Enga Ponerasa. We both sat and discussed and wrote. So it was a very joyful work. And from then on, I have been writing lyrics. And every time I complete a song, I feel very excited, elated. And it brings a different kind of happiness to my life, my brain, and everything. And it's like you're gifting a song to the society. So you will realize that the song is going to take care of someone. That's how Nenjayir was made.
Nenjayir was beautifully worded.
Mahati, we used to correct and check, and lots of things are happening regarding the lyrics. Directors used to ask me, this word is new, you're not people can't understand this, so change the lyrics. And
okay,
people, directors could come with lots of their own advices and suggestions, and Rahman never uttered a word about it. Just go and write the lyrics. And even if I used rare words in my lyrics, he would appreciate and he would take it completely. We didn't do much correction. We haven't done any kinds of corrections then. Rahman had this kind of audacity.
interesting.
He could have.
On a last note, what are you currently writing, or are you planning to publish your next work?
Yeah, this quarantine gave me lots of time to sit and write. So I published my first novel, Ariyachol, and I wrote few collections of poetry, few collections of short fiction. I wrote few scripts. I've been pitching scripts to producers.
Okay.
I was addicted with writing. That happened. That's a different journey and experience, and I enjoyed. And being a Siddha doctor, I treat lots of corona patients. I give away medicines. I'm connecting with people more deeply, more closely now after quarantine, I believe, because life is not easy,
Yeah.
we could see the closer lives of few people, sufferings of people around us. So it has changed me, transformed me to a different person now, I believe. I'm not the same person. In a year, I had experienced lots of people's personal sufferings. It has changed a lot. It has changed me a lot.
So it's been a journey of its own this past 1.5 years.
For everyone, I believe. It's not just me.
True. All right, Dr. Revathi. We met like a decade back, and it was wonderful meeting you back then. I don't know if you remember, we met, I think, in Alliance Francaise.
Yeah, I remember. I remember.
Yeah. So I've been waiting to get you on the podcast as well. So it was, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for the questions. I think you had done lots of research, and thanks for coming back to me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or would like to give feedback, please get in touch with me on Instagram at Maharani Talks. Take care.